It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the full shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Kevin Carr.
And this is It's Movie Time.
Boom.
And, Kevin.
Yes.
New film called First Man.
That's right.
Now, this is not some anthropological study.
Not a caveman. Early Man was last year about cavemen, or earlier this year. That may have been earlier this year.
All right, Damien Chazelle
Yes.
is the director of this, and I've liked his Whiplash and La La Land.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Damien Chazelle fan.
Okay.
I thought his movies are fine, but I don't go gaga over him.
Well, everybody likes Neil Armstrong.
Sure.
Okay,
That's not to like.
Right.
Wapa, Canetta Boy.
And he was the first man to walk on the moon.
That's right.
So this new movie, Kevin, what's its strength?
I think the strength of First Man is its visceral in the cockpit feel.
Boy.
That's what makes this work. This is what differentiates it from The Right Stuff or Apollo 13.
Right.
Any of those famous space movies.
Yes.
Yeah, at one point you do get the Saturn V rocket hero shots, but most of it, mostly everything that takes place in space is in the cockpit, in that cramped, tiny little cockpit with a window the size of a legal pad. And that's the way they experienced it. We look at it and we romanticize it in film, but it's not nearly as comfortable.
Well, and I think the one closest to this might be Gravity.
Yeah,
but
although that was very special effecty.
Yes, oh yeah, and you don't get to hear it rattling and see the bolts and all the imperfections of this little tin can throwing these guys into space.
It's a biopic of Neil Armstrong, but it's told from the perspective of Neil Armstrong. I mean, really in his head. The only way you'd be more in his head is to be physically in his head.
I agree with you. Yeah.
In this movie, and I think that's what makes it work, because there have been so many of these, heroic space movies, and not to take anything away from the heroic aspect of space travel, because it certainly is.
Yeah.
But this kind of movie is trying to put you in the cockpit, put you in the driver's seat. And I've been down to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and they have replicas of the Gemini and the Mercury and the Apollo capsules, and I've climbed them there. Those are tight fits. I mean, that's smaller than the car we drove down to Florida.
God, yeah. And he does it. And he when they put themselves in that capsule, you are feeling that claustrophobia.
Oh yeah.
I think it's what. And there are not as many shots as you would have expected about the beautiful panoramas, either of Earth or the Moon.
They have a couple in there because I think they kind of have to.
I know.
Just to
Yeah.
appease Hollywood.
Yes, right. But they do. Now, Kevin, usually the weakness in these films for me is the spouse.
For me, that's always a weakness. And for this, it was for me.
All right,
Are you saying it wasn't for you?
Well, I'm saying it wasn't as much. Let's just say this. Certainly Ryan Gosling is terrific as Armstrong.
He's playing the dialed down, very quiet
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling character.
Yeah, and if you saw him in Drive, you might see some of that here. Now, Claire Foy from TV's Crown, is it?
Crown, yeah.
Right? How does she do as Janet, or how does that work out as Janet?
It's always a challenge for the spouse in these movies, because it's just, with the exception of the human computers they had that we saw on Hidden Figures a couple years ago, there weren't a whole lot of women in the space program.
Right.
I mean, sexism was even more rampant back then, and so they just didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, in a movie like this, the spouse doesn't do much, because there's not much.
Yeah.
There wasn't much for the spouse to do then, and that's not a knock against Claire Foy or anyone else who's ever played a spouse in these films, but there's just not much to do except wring your hands.
Well, I do like the moment when she berates him that he needs to talk to his boys and tell them that he might not return.
Yeah,
like that moment.
I don't know. That's one of the things I don't know if that's accurate.
Of course.
I've always wondered. A lot of times in movies they over dramatize certain things, and I'm not Neil Armstrong's father.
But if there is to be any humor in the film, it would have to be when the boys interrogate him and he treats it like it's some hearing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to say anything. He doesn't want to answer. Are there any more questions he has to ask the kids? I mean, he's completely in character.
Yeah.
But then the way this film is framed, you know that Neil Armstrong is the man for the job because he's one
Well, and like I said, it's not about the space program. It's about the person going through it, and it's about the person surrounded by all this chaos and noise, not just in the space capsule itself, but in the administration and in the press, and then the secluded isolationism that happens once you get out there.
Yeah. I think the film does a super job in placing us there, giving us the different. I think the anti-romantic view of it, even though there are suggestions about the race with Russia.
Sure, I mean you couldn't avoid that.
Right,
that was there.
You can't. Yeah. But they don't play it up too far. Now, what about other characters, Kevin? Do we get a chance to see anybody else, as we know Gosling is dominating?
Well, it's funny because he's dominating because the camera's on him the most. And you know what movie, ironically, the movie that that this reminded me of, because not subject matter wise, but the way it was shot, was it the Son of Samuel or something? What was the one about? It was the foreign film about the guy who worked in the concentration camp.
Oh my!
Because that was all, like, the camera was always just right at his head.
Right, following him around the camp.
Yeah, yes. Son of Saul.
Yeah.
And that's what this reminded me of because of how they shot it. Because you're right, Gosling dominates, but I don't think Gosling dominates. I think the way they shoot it, they just they have him in frame almost exclusively.
That's right. And this brings about my minor objection, is that there were too many people whose names I didn't know.
Okay.
And they were, I mean, I got Deke Slayton, I got that, but a few others, and even Michael Collins.
Michael Collins barely shows up in this movie.
But so there were a lot of characters who have become, I think, minor celebrities.
Like Buzz Aldrin. But he was pretty
He was good, he was good. Michael, was it Stowe? Corey Stowe?
Yeah. The Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man.
Okay. Anyway, what I just would have liked to have, now I don't know, you can't put little tags in there to tell you who they are, because otherwise that changes it.
It took me a while to figure out who Gus Grissom was.
Yes, right. Okay.
I mean, I'll give it to you there, because they don't always cast them with how they looked.
No, right, exactly.
And you're like, wait, which one's Grissom? and that was a little confusing. So I think that was, you're right, I think that was a wrinkle in it. It does run a bit long, too.
Boy, it does. 2 hours and 25 minutes, I think, maybe.
About 220 something. It's 2 hours 20 and change. So it takes a while to get to what it needs to do. But I think when it does it very well.
Yeah, and we'll let our audience enjoy the conclusion, which would be landing on the moon.
Spoiler alerts.
Right. Yes. Let's say if they do make it to
Will they get there? Will they get home?
I think Chazelle has a little bit of a different take than what we might have expected.
Yeah.
And that'll be worth looking at.
I think it's important to do it differently.
Yes. Kevin Carr, the film is First Man.
Yes.
What grade would you award it?
I am going to give it a solid B while I sit my tang.
And I'm going to give you a tangy A-.
Sounds good to me.
This would have to be one of our out-of-the-world shows.
That's right. It is fully in orbit.